We're back with remedy number 2 in our 5-part series. So Pat, we are now on to the only option is foreclosure. And I'd like to talk a little bit about how we conduct our foreclosure process in non-judicial states.
Non-judicial states, by definition, is where you do not need a judge involved. You don't go through the court system to have it handled. You go through a trustee. That trustee is established before we do the loan. Typically, it is the title company in which we utilize to do the transaction. When we go through a trustee for a non-judicial foreclosure in a non-judicial foreclosure state, it is very regimented and done through accordance with the law. This isn't Ignite Funding's procedures, it is the state's procedures. So we have to follow each state, and each state is somewhat different. For example, Colorado has public trustees. You don't use the title company, there's one public trustee per county. Utah, for example, they use attorneys to handle the foreclosures. Here in Nevada, we typically use the title companies to do it. So I'll speak here in Nevada, but know that it is not the same all across the country. It is very specific state, and in some counties, some states, very specific by county. Here in the state of Nevada, it is usually about a 120-day process. Once we get, the first step is to get the title company's approval to show that we have authority to foreclose as the beneficiary. The documentation all the investors sign prior to doing a loan with Ignite Funding, one of those documents is a loan servicing agreement, and the other, maybe even more importantly, is a special power of attorney. That special power of attorney enables Ignite Funding to sign on their behalf and initiate a foreclosure, to accept principal paydowns, and to accept interest payments. Those are the 3 biggest things that SPOA enables us to do. So the title company will go through, examine all the SPOAs to ensure that we have them, to ensure the beneficiary on the account is who actually signed on the SPOA, and to ensure that we, as Ignite Funding, do have authority to foreclose. Once that's established, which usually takes about a week or a little less than a week to do, we then move to the notice of default, or the NOD. The NOD is established in place by the government to show that there has been a default by the borrower. The borrower can test that default, and they have the right to cure that default, which moves into the right to cure stage. It's typically, or here in Nevada, it's exactly 90-day process in which the borrower can utilize any remedy they see fit to cure the default. Whether that's a default in missing interest payments, whether that's a default in missed maturity, missed default and any number of reasons. Yeah. They can cure that in that 90 days without us doing anything, really. After that 90 days is up, it goes to an advertising period. We actually have to publish in two different publications here in the state of Nevada. Again, each state is different and each county is different, but here in the state of Nevada, it's 2 different publications. You have to publish for 3 consecutive weeks. At the end of that 3 consecutive weeks, you can move to the TSD, the trustee sale date. What that TSD is a auction where the trustee is selling the property on behalf of the beneficiaries. To be more exact, here in the state of Nevada, that means the title company is selling it on behalf of the investors. The investors, as the beneficiary, will get all net proceeds up to the total amount owed to them at the foreclosure auction. If, for whatever reason, at the foreclosure auction, there aren't any buyers or not enough buyers to bid it up to a high enough price, that property would actually sell back to the beneficiaries, i.e. the investors, and they would hold that property into a special purpose entity. There are costs involved all the way through that step of the process, and it's been Ignite's process, at least at this point, to pay for those costs. They are rather substantial, usually up to about a 1% of the overall sales price or overall loan amount. And right now we're working on a portfolio of $130 million, so 1% is quite a bit of money if that were to go down that route, which I don't foresee happening, but it is definitely a possibility. And so we have established that we will pay for that cost and get reimbursed for it upon the sale of the property. So in the state of Nevada, 90-day right to cure. about a 1 month advertising and actual foreclosure period, so a total of 4 months here in the state of Nevada, and that is usually pretty typical for most states in which we operate that are non-judicial foreclosure states.
Now, when we've taken those properties back through foreclosure and they are in that special purpose entity with the investors owning it, what's the next step in that process to get the property sold?
Absolutely. The next step is to get the property sold, and that is any way you would sell a typical property. So we are licensed brokers here in-house that we can advertise the property for sale, so we put together marketing materials to do just that. If for whatever reason we are unable to sell the property as is in the first 60 days or so, then we'll hire an outside third party to do it. When we do that, there are costs to handle, usually 3 to 6% of the overall sales price. Once that third-party broker is involved, they are going out and marketing the property for sale. We like to sell the property as is because that is less cost for the investors and less time to get the property into a sellable state. If for whatever reason we are unable to sell the property as is, we may have to finish the work. Let's say if it's a partially completed home, for example, we may have to go in and finish the construction because it's a lot easier to sell a completed home than a partially completed home. And there's a multitude of examples just like that where we may have to do some additional work before we can get it into what I'll consider a sellable state.
Great. Well, thank you very much for talking to us about foreclosure in a non-judicial state.